Hello and welcome to another edition of How a Book Builds Your Brand with Sigrid de Cast from Sticky Big Marketing. And today I have with me Robyn Pearce. Welcome, Robyn. Nice to have you on the program today and ready to interview you. Now, a little bit about Robyn. There's a lot there and we'll hear more details as we go through. But Robyn has actually got the title Time Queen, Robyn. That's an exciting title because you help conquer that overwhelm when we have too much to do and not enough hours in the day. Is that right?
That pretty much sums it up, Sigrid. Yes.
You love that. Now, Robyn has also authored 9 books. How cool is that? 9 books, and you're a prolific writer of articles and regularly appear on different subjects on television and radio as well. I think that is very exciting, and I'm going to ask you a bit more on that as we go through the interview. So you've really got quite an extensive experience, and you're focusing on that whole time management. Is that right, Robyn? Tell us a bit more.
Yes. I have. I've been specialising in time management for the last 27 years, actually. So,
wow.
Yes.
Time flies when you have fun, doesn't it?
Oh, you'd say that. Yes, it's quite true. Absolutely. It's hard to believe it's that long.
So I'm really interested in the topic of using books to promote yourself and promote the knowledge that you have, that we all have. There are a lot of people, in particular women too, when they are in business, they like to write a book or they just jump in and write one. Now, you've achieved 9 so far. So writing as such is a passion of yours. Can we say that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was quite young, in my early 30s, and with a whole lot of ankle biters around my legs, as in, like, I raised 6. So,
what an achievement!
Yes, well, there was not much writing done in those days.
I can imagine.
They all arrived in a 9-year period, so it was crazy. But I can remember going to a public library, listening to an author one day, and as I walked out of there, I would have been about 22 or 23, still surrounded with nappies, saying to myself, one of these days I'm going to be an author. I just always knew I would be.
And what was that thought behind that? What made you think that? Was it because you just wanted to see a book in print with your name on? Was it a particular topic in those early days when you had those thoughts, Robyn?
It certainly wasn't about time management. At that stage, I felt there was never enough of it, and I was just overloaded. But I have always loved books. I was a librarian from my first career. And as a little child, I was a writer, just little articles for the children's pages of the local newspaper. And somehow I always knew that my future had books in it. It's just been a burn and a passion inside me all these years.
Fantastic. So that's a different starting point for you to what many authors that have come to me have had, which is very exciting. And you sort of had that vision. The writing is for you, and putting the knowledge you have, or the thoughts you have into print. I think that's wonderful. So when you looked at actually going through that process of your first book, what was it, Robyn, and how did that come about?
It was an interesting and quite delightful, serendipitous event, I suppose. I'd started running small, not terribly large, well, that's obvious, isn't it? Running little time management courses, and I'd written a number of articles about time management in my early stages of. I had learned quite a bit because my time skills were really poor. And I needed to learn that for my own benefit, and then people started asking me for help. So that had springboarded some training programs. I was at a teachers' conference where I'd been speaking about time management for teachers, and I had prepared quite a comprehensive workbook. It was in the early days when I didn't know that it's better to let the attendees write their own story. So I had quite a lot of information in there about time management. One of the participants, as we came out, handed my workbook to a gentleman who was on a book stand, as you so often see at conferences. And he said, oh, look at this. I think this would make a good book.
Right.
And that was actually the beginning of it. I mean, there's a longer backstory, but that essentially was the essence. The young guy looked at it and said, yes, I think so. I think this could be of value, sent it off to our publishers. And it didn't. Anyway, there was a bigger story, as I say, but the bottom line was that I eventually, not very much longer after that, ended up writing my very first book, Getting a Grip on Time, and was picked up by one of the big, at the time, one of the biggest New Zealand book publishers, who many years later was sold out to Penguin. But
yes, right. So that whole area, talking about the publishing component already, I mean, that has changed dramatically, hasn't it? Yes. So you went through a publisher. What was the great thing about that process, and what was a not so great thing going through publisher, Robyn? Have you got a comparison?
Well, I do, because since then, that was in 1995 that I wrote the book. So we're talking a long time ago, that first book.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was really wonderful to hand it to a publisher. And I suppose that those first few books, I really did want to be published by a publisher, because I had that certain amount of snob factor, having been a librarian, and I'd seen some really badly put together self-published books, and they were pretty ugly, actually, and I wanted the professional kudos of having done a good book. Now, I know that that's not the issue anymore, and since then I have, and I will answer your question, but I have done 5 with big trade publisher. I've self-published 1 where I paid to get it printed, and all of the others have been done digitally, and that's the space that I'm now really excited about how to do indie publishing. So I will answer your question, but it's not for now, it's for in the past.
Right.
The big benefit of being with the trade publisher back in 1996 was that they managed the process. All I had to do was write the book. And that still is a benefit, but I think even more today, the downside of going with the trade publisher is that you still have to do a lot of the marketing.
Yes.
And you'll make a lot less money than what is possible. It's not necessarily easy, but it's highly possible to make a lot more money with indie publishing now than it is going digital with places like Amazon and Kobo and all of the other platforms, than getting a piddly little royalty from a trade publisher.
That's absolutely the way it is, isn't it? And I think in those days you just didn't have too much choices, really, and it was much harder to do the self-publishing. I think that whole process is really, so I run programs, and they are 6-week programs where I show the author exactly what to put in place. Now, I use a very specific process to focus the book on the brand building. So it has a really particular topic and purpose right from the start. So that makes it smooth writing. It makes it bringing all the content together. And then the publishing component is a step-by-step process in these days, really, really straightforward. So needing to have that done elsewhere has become on the sidelines. It's not as important. But there's still a lot of people that do like to use publishing houses. I do have a client at the moment in overseas, and he's very much set in having all the work done with a publishing house in particular. So we'll see how that's going to pan out for him.
It'll take a lot more time, as you're very well aware, with the process that you've just described. You're in control when you're an indie publisher. Yeah. And I make that a differential from self-publishing, in actual fact, which I don't know whether you do as well, but you can move the process so much faster.
Yes.
Whereas it could be 2 years if you've been lucky enough to be accepted by a publishing house. Could be 2 years before your book comes out. That's not helping your brand.
No, that's the other way. And you've just touched on the money. You can make a lot more money because you're not sharing the royalties with the publishing house and their expectations of it. And the whole marketing is still up to you anyway. But I think, the books that you have written and published, Robyn, are they all along the time management topic?
All but the last one, and I've decided to rewrite that one. It hasn't hit the press yet.
Right.
And what's happened is, like, I have actually made a lot of money from my books, but it's because they've been time management. That's my identity business wise, and so they've been a really great marketing tool.
Yes.
They built my brand.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, they absolutely have. It's been huge, and there's only one that's not directly time management, and that was I've gone with two series, I suppose you'd say. So there's the Getting a Grip series, and then there's the About Time series. And one of the Getting a Grip ones I did co-write with a lovely friend from Bismarck in North Dakota, who is a leadership specialist, and she just liked my writing style, and she liked the idea of the series, and she wasn't so much a writer, rather more a practitioner. So we did that book together, but it's still Getting a Grip on, and then leadership. So that's the only one that doesn't quite fit, but because time management covers so many different things, it still fits in the stable for my work really nicely.
So it has, you've just mentioned that, so really you have built your brand with the books, and obviously, you know, you've made the money along the line with it as well, which often authors don't do. Being a marketing agency, now I've shifted more to the consultancy, but as the marketing agency, I've had a lot of authors come saying, look, I've written a book here now, I want to make some sales, I need some marketing, because they didn't.
Wrong way round.
Yes, I'm so glad you're saying that. Tell us a bit more about that from your experience. Why is that the wrong way around from your point of view?
Well, if you're wanting to write and it's related to your business, what are you a specialist in?
Yes.
Let it enhance your competencies, enhance your brand, and it opens doors. That's why I say I don't know how many I've probably made hundreds of thousands of dollars from sale of my books, not just directly because of the books, but because it's opened the doors.
Yes, yes.
And even the articles, I mean, I've got story after story of work that I've had come to me because of my writing, and it's because I've been such a specialist.
Yes, and that's a huge component. That's exactly the journey I like to take the authors on. Let's focus on, first of all, what is it about and what's your business about, and specialize and make the book exactly that. It's not the book sales, is it? It's the programs, it's your expertise and the work that you're getting in from there. So it never compares to the sales of the book alone, and it's an easy mathematical equation. You can sell a book for what, $30, $35, but you can sell your own programs and your consulting, coaching, whatever that may be that authors have in mind. You can make a lot more. That's thousands of dollars worth in many cases.
A lot.
You know,
the other thing that is a big benefit of staying in your niche is, just one of the many benefits, is that because you're writing down things, it's actually refining the thinking. So you become sharper and more articulate about the things that you're talking to your customers about. If you are a trainer or a presenter or a speaker or an expert or specialist of something, you're constantly honing that skill, and the two are very complementary actually. The speaking or presenting side of things or training, and the writing, and they just come to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about your time management program. You've got one at the moment that you are inviting submissions to, or registrations to. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. We've it's all coming. Everything feeds into everything, as I've said, and I have one of the biggest issues that people are constantly asking about with time is how to plan and prioritize effectively. Mm-hmm. There are four major strands to the topic of what I call time management, and planning and prioritizing is just one of them. But because that's the one that's most asked for, or that people are most aware of, that means time management, I've created an online course, and it's at my website, gettingagrip.com, and it is just, if you go to the front page, actually, you'll find, I'm just looking at my little link, over on the right-hand side, and I'll send you the URL, it's the Getting a Grip on Planning and Prioritising online course. Very inexpensive. I've done it through Teachable, but what I've taken not only my speeches, but I've taken content out of my books and I've put it into there. So again, everything's feeding into everything.
That's exactly, and that is how it needs to work, because that is building your brand and your business, isn't it? One thing fits to the next. It's like building blocks, really, bringing it all together. So you are using what's in your books and from your knowledge to do the program. And we also have had, or I also have had authors where we did that a little bit the other way around. They have already for a number of years collected and collated articles and other material, maybe even podcasts, and then they've used that material to put some of that as content into the book.
I've done that too.
So kind of, yeah, right. Because that kind of brings it together as well from that perspective, doesn't it?
Yes. The second book, because there's the Getting a Grip series and there's the About Time series. So that tips books. And that second one that I wrote was called About Time. And my publisher said, I really love these little tips you're sending out by your e-zine. Would you do me a book of them? So I curated a lot of the content that I had. And that book, I was able to do it really quickly. It was written in 3 weeks.
That you could almost do that in a day in some instances, to put a book together from
exactly.
No, but you know, it is possible. We have had that with when you have your overall outline and you know what you want to achieve with it, it can be done. So that's very exciting to hear that from you, and I really like that you had that experience, how you can use the book in ways other than the sales, which is often just that first and only way of thinking. So if you were thinking about giving a tip to want to be authors new into it, they haven't done anything yet, what would be the first thing you'd say for them to consider before they jump in and just start writing, which often they do? They just say, oh, I've got an idea, get started. What would be your tip?
One tip, you've got to you're punching me here. Well, it would be something you've just tacked onto is having an outline. When I did the About Time book and got it done in 3 weeks, I mind mapped the overview. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the bit that I'll squeeze in here as well, is to be very disciplined. See it as a job, and this is a time tip, is to do your writing in the time that you've got the highest energy. So for me, that was always first thing in the morning, and then I would go and have my breakfast and do my exercise or what other things I had to do. But work with your energy and be disciplined about when you're going to do it.
So that comes back to your whole time management. What your overall topic is, it is making sure that you have that outline, the clarity on what you want to write about, and then setting aside the time and making that priority and getting into that is what I'm hearing.
Definitely.
Yes. And that I think that's a great tip. So I have authors come and they say, oh, I've already started the book, I just need to know how to bring it out there. And I often get a little sad because they have started the book, but they're getting very disjointed because they didn't have that overview, that outline of their content in terms of maybe chapter headlines or something like that, and then they get lost and it becomes stretched of the topic, really.
I think that's especially so for non-fiction. For fiction, there are people who are structured, and there are others known as pantsers, so they're writing by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
The story evolve, and I think that's we're not having that conversation. It's a different story, but
yes, it's about business. My particular program is focusing on business owners to use the book, the authorship, as building their business, as their marketing tool, that main tool, which I'm hearing you have done with your 9. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times they are serious. So you've really you started on the topic, and then you've kind of followed that up, Robyn. Did I hear that correct?
Yes, you certainly did. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Tell us a little bit more about that. So how many of those are there? Is it all one, or is it several different ones?
Getting a grip on time. I've only just finished completely rewriting them all.
Oh, okay.
Apart from the 9th one, which I'm the fiction one. I'm about to start on historical fiction, so we'll park that one. I have written it, several bits, but I'm going to redo it.
Okay.
I don't, because that's another huge learning curve. So we'll park that one. But of the others, there's Getting a Grip on Time, or well, now called Getting a Grip on Time Management. That one came out in 1996, and you'd think that time management is an evergreen topic, but things have changed with the way we receive information. So
the technology has made a difference too, I think, isn't it?
Definitely. So that had a significant rewrite. On that series, there's Getting a Grip on the Paper and Email War, Getting a Grip on Leadership, as I've mentioned, and then Getting a Grip on Parenting Time, because not only did I raise 6 kids, but I have 17 grandchildren. So,
I was going to tap into that. 6 children of your own. That is a lot of
work. No, 5 of my own and a foster son.
Okay. Oh, well, still you had 6 around you.
I raised 6.
To manage, yes. And it's all about management.
And the 5 have produced the 17 grandchildren. So,
wow.
And so over the years, I've written articles. It's again another curating thing, is that I've written articles that have had a business application, but something that happened with the kids triggered some kind of almost a parable, if you like, a little anecdote or case study that you can put a business application on. So that book was curated and it was able to be written quite quickly as well. So that's Parenting Time. And then there's, in that same series, then there's 2 smaller ones that have only ever been digital. Getting a Grip on Simple Goal Setting and Getting a Grip on Effective Business Meetings. So they're much smaller, but really useful information in them. And then there's About Time, 120 time-saving tips for those with no time. And the second About Time one is for teachers, because I've worked extensively. It's certainly not my only clients, but I've worked a lot with teachers over the years in both Australia and New Zealand. So that's About Time for teaching. And that's, again, another 120 time-saving tips for teachers and those who support them.
Right, so tapping into that. So the books, as such, a book doesn't have to be massive like an encyclopedia, because then people can get through it much quicker as well, especially in these times where attention spans are getting shorter or are really short. So having tips in a book is a great way as well, from what I'm hearing, and it also helps to bring it together quicker for the author, I guess. Bringing those tips together. The other thing I want to tap in that you said is, around bringing your books together on the topic and niching it. It's an important part. I find, and my programs are based on, you have no competition when you're writing on your one specific speciality. Do you find that? There's many time management and management consultants out there, but I think you are unique. You have that range of books, and not only that, you are unique, not just in your immediate area, but globally. You have clients in many different countries.
I do.
Yes.
And readers in many different countries. I mean, one of the things that I'm now doing, because as I said or touched on briefly, I'm learning much more about indie publishing. And one of the things that is recommended by all of the experts that I've tapped into is to have an advanced reader team. So I've got advanced readers who are happy to read through my books and not only tell me if there's any mistakes I've made or typos or anything, but also to give me reviews on Amazon, and they're just fantastic people.
Yes.
I've got one in America, there's somebody else in Australia. They're dotted all around the world, and people buy them from all around.
Yeah, and it's that visibility for who you are, what you do, that the books can give you. So it's really for authors or want to be authors. It's to think there's much more to it than book sales. That is, I think, a kind of a sort of a perception that's come from olden days, if I can call it that, I'm an author and I'm selling my books and therefore I make money. But I think, as far as I know, even big name authors, the sales usually, or the money is made after the book sales from other merchandise most of the time, or
quite a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a point I'd like to really hit on there is that I think if we want to be a writer, we have to realize that there's two parts to this, and it is a business. That writing is part of it, and the marketing is another part of the business. And if you don't do that marketing, you're wasting your time, unless you're just writing for ego. So
Yeah.
I'm interested in money, actually, quite frankly, as well as turning out a really good product.
Well, look, that's fantastic. You've really raised a number of very important points there. I'll see if I can summarize some of that. Now, I didn't take notes while we were talking, so let me just go through and jump in if I have missed anything. But the points that I've, got from you in particularly is that if you want to start writing, think about what's the topic that you actually want to talk about. How specific is it? Make it specific so that you stand out. And when you jump in, the self-publishing, it can be a really good way of doing it because it's faster and it gives you a full return for what you can get back from it. And you said really importantly, the marketing comes first. You got to consider how you're going to market it.
Yes.
What have I missed? Something important?
About the bit about being disciplined.
Discipline. Well, that's your time management part, isn't it, Robyn?
Yes, but like any good author is disciplined.
It's discipline. Yes.
They go hand in hand. If you want to be successful as a writer, because you have to be a good marketer as well. So it's splitting the day up into the sections that are going to work for you, which is why when you said let's do this interview, I said afternoon, because the morning is when, as much as possible, I try to be creative in the morning.
And use that time frame. And each person needs to look at what's their best time. That's
exactly. And it will vary from person to person.
Yes, because some people might be night owls that prefer to do that brain work later in the day. I like the mornings as well. I think that is wonderful. Do you have a tip or a couple of tips for those that start, what you think is they need to explore first? I mean, you've already given us quite a lot of tips, but to kind of wrap it up and give us, again, there is an online course that people can tap in about that whole time management, and give us that title again and where they can find that on your website.
Oh, certainly. I'm trying to think of a summary phrase of something that I haven't already said. I will say this, and it's not, I haven't touched on this, is enjoy the journey. It's so often we get anxious because we haven't achieved things as fast as we want to, or we're not making the returns that we think we ought to get, etc. So just relax, enjoy it. There's always tomorrow. Do the best you can each day, but don't sweat it. Just enjoy it. And it's a wonderful creative opportunity. And there are so many wonderful people like you, Sigrid, out there that are helping people. I think it's fantastic that you're running this course. So that would be like an overrider, if you like. And as to where to get my, not only my online course, but we'll be able to see all my books, the digital ones. We're just finishing getting the website sorted for that. We have got a separate website, but gettingagrip.com will give you everything. There's my ongoing e-zine, which I do approximately weekly, and the online courses there, the planning and prioritizing course, and there's heaps of other information there. The website that's dedicated just to my my indie published books is robynpearce.com.
Okay, great. So you've got gettingagrip.com. That is where they can find all of the material you have. And also there is a robynpearce.com website for viewers or
specifically for the books
to have a look. Yeah, that's wonderful. I want to thank you for your time and for sharing so generously your expertise, your knowledge, and your experience, most of all, with writing from both levels of, having had publishers and publishing yourself. And there are differences and things keep moving. So it's good to know and have the background from both. I was here with Robyn Pearce. Thank you so much. Prolific writer, 9 books to her name, many, many articles visible all over online. And from me, Sigrid de Cast, Sticky Big Marketing, with the program that I run, Build a Book to Build Your Brand.
Thank you for inviting me, Sigrid.
You're welcome.